assume that yourself as a manager of an organization, and your responsibility is to make sure that every employee, every human resource that the organization needs is going to be one of those talented employees. Yeah. So for that particular reason, you have to make sure that you are going to recruit those types of employees only in your organization. Last week on chapter 6, I shared with you on the employee testing and selection. So this week, I'm going to share with you some of the important tools you need to use in order to recruit employees. So this is the crucial part in the life of organization. You are going to right employees with the right skill to be employed to the right position. The interviewing candidate part. Interviewing candidate part is very crucial to the company. Very crucial to the company because these are people who are going to make sure the survival of the company. Of course, when you hire new employees, that means you add another objective or you want to fulfill the objective that were not fulfilled before. So for that particular reason, the interviewing candidate part need to be tackled seriously, applying the best selection, you know, at every angle, using the right question or questionnaire when you do the interviewing. For this particular chapter, in relation to your CSR or your research project, yeah, relation to your research project, you need to do the interviewing. Yeah, you need to interview the management in order to get information needed for you to develop your your project paper on how actually you are going to improve the management of this cowboy town. So this is where actually you can apply the method that you learn when you do the interviewing at the cowboy town. I hope some of you already did the interviewing part, and now you are in middle of writing the project. But for those who haven't done so, you still have time, I think, to visit this management and ask relevant questions. So that when you ask the relevant question, you will get the important crucial points for you to point out the issues and challenges that this company has for them to survive in their business. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that this chapter is about how you do the interviewing process. Yes, assuming that those management people in Cowboy Town are the interviewees, so you are the interviewer. But for human resource management purpose, this chapter is about interviewing the new employees. Yeah, and one fact is that most people think that they are able to do interview. This is not my opinion. This is based on research. Yeah. Research says that most of management at upper level, they thought good at interviewing people, the new recruitees, which actually not supported by the facts, in which facts found that not not many of management people understand or know how to do it. So it is timely to for the management, for the management to learn the skills because if you do what you have done before, if not like what this chapter is going to share, you probably came up with employees, not managers or not the respected human resource that you want to be to include in your organization. So this is some of the basic facts found by previous studies showing that many management at the upper level, they thought they have the relevant skills in doing the interviewing. Yeah? So one of the popular method in recruiting new resource or new personnel is, of course, through selection interview. We call it selection interview, in which this selection interview determine the job performance, the productivity of the organization, in which the new employees that have been interviewed should meet the expectation of producing a good performance. And once they produce excellent performance, of course, productivity of the company is going to be rest assured. Yeah. So basically, ideas of these chapters is on how to do a job interview. Later in the chapters of human resource management, in this Dassler book, you are going to learn as well on how to do performance appraisal interviews, uh, more or less similar like doing a selection interview, and as well as exit interview. This is the interview whereby people are heading to their retirement, and so they have to undergo the exit interview. Or if the organization, if the employees select early option for retirement, for example, yeah. So basically, the methods that you are going to learn in this chapter can be used in doing performance appraisal and exit interview. The first one is how actually we structure our interview. Basically, later I will show you the difference between structured and unstructured interview. So the most important, the first and foremost, when you want to do this interview, you have to decide the structure of the interview. Secondly, what questions are you doing in order to, to evaluate the candidates? Doing this, you have to have the right question in mind. When you do your thesis at the end of the semester, yeah, you're going to research, and in your research, you have to distribute questionnaires. If you do it quantitatively, but if you do your research based on qualitative, you also need to have question in mind. Yeah, what is the difference between quantitative research approach and qualitative research approach? Quantitative refers to a set of questionnaires that you are going to distribute to your respondents, and inside the questionnaires are items of measurements. So basically, that item, it needs to be answered by your respondent on that piece of paper. Or maybe nowadays, you are going to use Google form, for example. So that is quantitative questioning. Qualitative questionnaire is whereby you do a verbal interview. You go down to the field, you meet the respondents, and you ask them questions. And in your mind, you should have already items or questions asked them. Yeah. So when you do your research later on, yeah, you also have to distribute questionnaires, and I refer to the qualitative one. Actually, qualitative one is similar to how management or managers or officers doing interview, yeah, in which you are actually applying the qualitative method of interviewing candidates. But in research, we have two choices. The first one is quantitative, whereby you distribute questionnaires. The second one is qualitative, in which you are using your verbal approach. But while doing that verbal approach, you still need to have some basic ideas. So in interviewing, yeah, in interviewing, we actually applying the qualitative approach. Yeah, we are applying the qualitative approach. Most importantly, we have the reference of question that we are going to ask. So the content is very important. Yeah, and the third types of interviews require us to do the how actually we administer the interview. This is the method whereby how we speed up our process of interview if we are looking forward to hire many employees, many candidates. But if we only require few numbers of employees, I think uh, time is not an issue, but the way we approach, the way we do the interview is very important because we have some approach either one-to-one, group to one, or group to several candidates and so on. The one I will explain next slide. So structured and unstructured interview. We have two types of interview. One is structured. The second one is unstructured. What is the difference? Structured is similar like we have set of question, okay, set of ideas to ask. Unstructured, we usually begin with one general idea, then later on that ideas will develop based on the reply of the interviewees. So in between these two, structured and unstructured interview, before that, structured interview is the listing the question ahead of time and even list and score possible answers for appropriateness, meaning that not only have what question you are going to ask, but you also have some schema of answers. If the answers from the interviewees not according to the schema of the answers, particular candidate might not be the right candidate to be employed. The unstructured, as I said, is the manager or the interviewer do not have any format to follow. He started with one general ideas. Based on the reply of the interviewee, he developed a new set of a new question, for example. In between these two, structured and unstructured interview, which type of interview is the best and why? So logically, if we want to ask this question, the answer is structured interview. Yeah? Structured interview is the best type of interview compared to unstructured interview. Why? Because of first, consistencies, reliability, and validity. Last week, you learned about reliability and validity. We can rely on the set of questions being asked because it has been validated. So validity generalization can be used, that set of questionnaire. Not like unstructured interview in which you don't have basic question to ask, which actually, if you don't have any basic question, then set of question that you put forth during that interview is not validated. Most likely, if you apply unstructured interview, you will not meet the objective of selecting the right employees. So, think about structured interview, the consistencies of question being asked according to the job description, reliable, and has been validated. Secondly, structured interview can be handled by any managers. I'm referring to senior managers, young managers, or maybe head of department who are not a manager, for example, or head of section. I'm referring to because they have this guideline, from the structured interview. And the third reason why structured interview is the best interview approach because, as I said, when we have the set of questions which actually answering the job description expectation. So meaning to say, we only pick those who really meet the expectation of performing this particular task, job related, and we reduce overall subjectivity. What happens when we apply unstructured interview? Sometimes it go like the box of important key ideas. Yeah. So, but through structured interview, we are guided by relatedness of the question, and of course, the third one is to improve the ability to withstand legal challenges. Maybe at the end of the day, when we hired some group new employees and there is candidate who is not satisfied, want to argue with us why he or she is not selected, why the others were selected, for example. So basically, with structured interview, we can avoid these legal challenges. Yeah, we have situational and behavioral. So in a situational interview, you ask the candidate what his or her behavior would be in given situation. Yeah, how is he or she react on any incident, for example, or upon any uh, activities, any challenges, how a particular candidate is going to react. Situational question usually we ask using this phrase of suppose you were faced, uh, pretending that you are in a particular situation, question like that. So these are what we as manager or officers responsible to do interviewing. We can apply these two methods of situational types of questions. The second one is behavioral. So actually, we want to look at how good it is the candidate to to settle particular task, or if there is an accident as well, how actually they complete or they perform the activities or the issues in the task. So usually we use phrases like can you think, can showing the ability. So that's why we use phrase of can. Secondly, in behavioral interview, of course I mentioned this today, how they actually reacted, but more or less situational and behavioral, if we observe the definition, if we observe the phrases used, actually it is not too much different from one another. But the key word is that situation and behavior. Yeah, the key word. Okay, this is some organization, some companies use STAR method. STAR method is a situational type of interview question. Yeah, S stands for situation. Candidates are given question, then task, what tasks were involved in that situation, what they need to do, action, what probable action if we are referring to the future. But if we are referring to the past, like what this slide was actually, this slide referring to what actually the candidate had done in his previous employment. But we can still use this to ask the candidate what are they going to do in the future. So R result. So this is the situational types of interviewing question. Yeah.